Hello everyone, I'm Dead Knight and this is In It to Win It. What a ride we've had in Season 91 in Wild. We just hit Legend today with Questline Odd Hunter. I know, it's not very original, but look, I mean, this is just the best deck in the game right now by a long shot. It's really not even close. So you've already heard me talk about this deck before, but nonetheless, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe about this deck, about the game, about Wild in general. And anyway, so let's get into it. So the basic list of this deck, anyone who's played Wild has already known this. Aside from hearing me talk about it last time, they've seen it in action a bunch of times. You play the quest line, you deal damage with spells 6 times, you play Brand, and then you just, for free, just machine gun your opponent's face with hero power while constantly playing spells. The only nuance to this, there's just a couple different nuances that we'll talk about in this video. We'll get more into the strategy now since we already did a video showcasing the list. So you'll see that I've made some mods to this list. We've changed it around from pretty much straight up spells to something that's a little more consistent with a little more utility. So in the last list we were running Auction Master Beardo, which was great, and Professor Slate, which was also great. We don't need those anymore now that Questline Warlock is out of Wild. So you don't need to take out giants so often with Professor Slate, and you don't need to get a couple turns ahead with Beardo anymore. You can play more consistent cards, and in this case, I think the package that I'm showcasing here is the most consistent. So you'll notice that there's some minions now, and they're all beasts. And so we had to cut Beardo to get the beasts in, and the reason for that is because of Master's Call. This is from Rastikan's Rumble. It's one of the only good cards in that terrible set. It's a 3-mana spell, and if every minion in your deck is a beast, then you guarantee to draw 3 beasts. So what you're going to be drawing here is you have 2 tradable beasts, you have Baku, and you have Venomous Scorpid. So typically you wouldn't want to draw Baku, but when you are playing, you have to play Baku, and since you're drawing 3 cards for 3 mana, it's worth it to draw Baku. You still get it out of your deck, and it smooths out your draw. And what often happens is you draw 1 or 2 tradable cards, which you can then for 1 mana draw a new card. So even though you draw tradables that aren't going to help you, you can, you trade those, you draw cards, you get a smoother deck. And then once you trade both those back, you can play the second Master's Call and draw the second Venomous Scorpid and the 2 tradables again. So with that massive amount of card draw coming from a spell, which is important, and the tradable, Rust-Rot Viper that you're going to get, you can play that against decks that are running weapons, and so that has some utility as well. But as you have that extra card draw coming from spells and those tradables, you're always going to find yourself drawing more spells that deal damage. So when I was first making this build, when Questline Warlock was in play, it was all about just dealing damage as fast as possible so that you can get Bran out and or Tavish out and start the chain as fast as possible and hope that you got yours before they got theirs. Now you don't have to do that. The games are a little slower. You have time to be more consistent, to draw cards in a less ignorant way, and save those spells to machine gun once you complete the quest. So it makes the deck much more consistent and lethal. And the way the meta is right now, most decks that are going to be playing against you are going to need to win with minions, and this deck is just obliterates minions. Aside from the hero power killing minions for free, you have all this cheap removal to control the early game, and then as long as you are able to do that, you can easily let the minions run wild while you just blast their face and win. So Pirate Warrior and Shadow Priest, which are the 2 other really popular decks in this meta, have almost no chance against this deck. The win rate is in the 90s against those decks because they just can't stick to the board. And now that we're running Rust-Rot Viper as well, you're guaranteed to have only 1 Ankar is almost every single Pirate Warrior build, or 1 Shadowcloth Needle, so you're always can take out their weapon too. That plus the consistency, it's just so lethal. Pretty much the only bad matchup here is mirror match, and it's going to come down to a little bit of draws, and if people are playing spoiler decks just to beat this deck. So, there's some Reno Shamans out there that run all kinds of hate, like Mindbreaker to just disable hero powers, and Spell Ward Jewelers, that kind of stuff. So, if you run up against that, I guess they got you, but there aren't too many of those out there. And even then, you can still win if they get bad draws. The other popular deck out there right now is Ignite Mage, which this does really well against because you have Flare to kill their ice block, and as long as you can get going and just deal as much damage to their face as possible, weaving in those steady shots when you can usually beat them to the punch and kill them before they get their Ignite combo going, because they don't have ice blocks to buy themselves extra turns. So another thing that we added to this list is Toxic Reinforcements gets to come back. So now that Questline Warlock is gone, and you don't have your Leper Gnomes actually helping them complete their quest and kill you, now we can play 2 Toxic Reinforcements, and this card is absolutely devastating if you can get it. Usually the trick in the mirror match is to get Toxic Reinforcements. You pretty much want to be mulliganing for Rapid Fire and Toxic Reinforcements against the mirror. Those 2 cards are your strongest cards in the early game. In most cases, actually. Obviously, if you're playing against a deck that's super minion heavy, Toxic Reinforcements might not be your best bet. You really want those Rapid Fires and those Wound Prays to get early minion removal. But yeah, this deck has all the tools, and with the Master's Call and the Tradeables, it's just super consistent. Now, one thing, if you're not too familiar with Master's Call and Tradeables, this is the last thing I'll say before we say goodbye, is the reason why we are running imported Tarantula and Rustrot Viper instead of just 2 Rustrot Vipers is that it's more consistent that you'll draw 3 cards from Master's Call. If you only have Venomous Scorpid and Baku and Rustrot Vipers, then if you drew any of those, since there only have 2 left in your deck, you only draw 2 from Master's Call. So you need that imported Tarantula to guarantee that you draw 3 cards from Master's Call. Because if there's only 2 different beasts left in your deck, then you only draw 2. You won't draw 2 copies of the same guy. So even though imported Tarantula is pretty much useless, will never actually hit the table, you need it to have a second tradable beast to go in with Master's Call. And believe me, it's worth it. Not knowing any better, I subbed one out. I tried to use 2 Rustrot Vipers, and it didn't work. So then I had to trade out the Rustrot Viper, put in an imported Tarantula, and it was smooth sailing. Anyway, let me know what you think of this new revamped, smoother version of the deck. I think this deck is going to be riding the top for a very long time until there's some meta shakeup, maybe with the new mini set. We'll see. But tell me what you think, your experience. I know there's haters out there, so don't be afraid to leave a hater comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel, and don't forget, especially, to tune in next time.